I can join it on mine.
Oh, no.
I got 100%.
Yeah, it's captured. So,
Let me know what our charger. Somewhere around here. You like that?
Hello, everyone. We're just letting everybody in for the information session. So if you could please make sure that your audio is muted. I see some familiar faces. There's Jan. You got in.
yep.
Christina's here. I see Albert. All right. And Grant, you'll just let them in as they continue to come. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to a information session regarding the licensure compact for dentists and dental hygienists for the state of Illinois. I'm really glad that you're here to listen to the information that we're going to share with you tonight. Tonight's speaking will be Matt Schaefer from the Council of State Governments. He has been part of this compact since the beginning. We also have his partner in crime, Grant, is here. Grant will be reading the chat box, so feel free to put any questions that you have regarding the licensure compact in Illinois in the chat box, and Grant will make sure that Matt gets your questions. Also, speaking tonight and answering questions will be the Illinois Dental Hygienists Association lobbyist, Jan Starr, the Queen of Illinois. She is here to also answer questions that you might have regarding Illinois and the licensure compact. My name is Lori McNamara. I am your current president of the Illinois Dental Hygienists Association, and I am really glad that you are here. Matt, go ahead and take it away.
All right, good evening, everybody. So glad you could join us and excited to be sharing with this group about the Dentist and Dental Hygienist Compact. This has been an initiative that CSG has been engaged with for about the past 3 years or so, and we're excited to be able to talk with you about it tonight. Just a little bit about the Council of State Governments before we get into talking about the licensure compact. So CSG is a national membership association for elected and appointed state government officials. So just like IDHA represents dental hygiene in Illinois, we represent state officials across the country from all 50 states and all 3 branches of government, excuse me. And we do a lot of training and policy research, providing consulting and technical assistance to states who need our services. And one program that we have at the Council of State Governments is our National Center for Interstate Compacts. So the Compact Center has existed for 20 years now, and we've worked on a variety of different compacts and different policy areas over about the past decade or so. We've really had a large emphasis on licensure compacts, and we've been involved in developing all of the 15 active compacts that exist for occupational licensure. Okay, so what exactly are we talking about when we use this term interstate compact? What we mean is a legal, legislatively enacted contract between two or more states. And like I mentioned on the previous slide, we've really seen at CSG an explosion of interest in using licensure compacts to solve professional mobility issues for licensed professions. So these are contracts between states where the states are agreeing to mutually recognize each other's licenses that have been issued. And so the compact's primary objective is to facilitate multi-state practice. So allowing a licensee to work in multiple states without navigating each state's specific licensure process. So we've heard of, through the development of this compact, of Hygienist holding 5, 6 licenses at one time. And so the compact would really cut down on the burden associated with holding all of those licenses. You're talking about duplicative continuing education requirements, paying multiple renewal fees, just keeping up with the renewal cycles for all of those licenses is burdensome. So the compact is designed to be a streamlined way to practice in all the compact member states without needing to obtain a license in every state where you want to practice. We always emphasize that compacts help maintain or improve public health and safety, and this is largely down to the amount of information sharing that occurs amongst the member states. So all of the compact member states are sharing things with each other around investigations and discipline, any board actions that are taken, all that would be shared amongst the member states, and you have access as a dental board to that information in real time. And then lastly, compacts preserve state authority over professional licensing. So this is not a takeover of state licensing in Illinois. This is just the creation of a optional alternative pathway for those who want to work in other states. Scope of practice is completely unimpacted. Requirements for a Illinois specific license are unimpacted by the compact. It's just creating a new pathway to practice under the compact that's totally separate and unrelated to the Illinois licensure process and Illinois state-specific scope of practice. So Illinois retains jurisdiction over those things. You can see here just how popular these compacts have been in recent years. And we are almost at 300 pieces of legislation that have been enacted. And I realized this slide's actually out of date. A couple weeks ago, we had a couple new pieces of legislation for compacts that were enacted. And so we're up to 295. And you can see 15 professions that currently have these compacts in place for licensure. And you can see the list here. CSG has been involved in developing all of these compacts. So you can see there, dentistry and dental hygiene. We facilitated the development process with the American Dental Association and the American Dental Hygienist Association. But we typically work with a board federation or a national membership association on all of the licensure compacts that we've developed. And you'll probably notice most of them are in healthcare or allied health professions. We are starting to move into non-health professions with teaching and cosmetology, but for the most part, we've stuck with healthcare. And I think that largely is down to the uniformity of the licensure requirements in healthcare. What it takes to be a nurse in one state is pretty identical in another state. And so that lends itself really well to compacts. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about the development process before we get into the specifics of the compact. So these discussions really started 4 years ago when CSG convened all of the national dental organizations together to essentially pitch the idea of a concept, a compact for dentistry. So you can see there all the organizations that participated, including the ADHA, as well as all of the other national dental organizations. In 2021, the ADA and ADHA both applied for a funding opportunity that CSG has with the Department of Defense. So DoD really cares about this issue of portability for their military spouse population. They want to ensure that their spouses are able to be mobile, move around the country when their family is required to move because of a basing decision, and they want to make sure that their license is portable and that they're able to stay in the workforce. And so DoD is working with CSG to fund new licensure compacts, and the ADA and ADHA applied for this opportunity. You can see there all the organizations that committed to supporting the effort. The first phase in the development process was convening what we call the technical assistance group, which was a broader group of stakeholders, about 20 folks from the ADA and ADHA, along with members of the profession. So we had a large number of hygienists who either sit on dental boards or are involved in their state dental hygiene associations. And we convened over the course of a few months to develop a set of recommendations that were then handed off to a much smaller group called the document team. And the document team was actually tasked with putting pen to paper on the compact. And so this was more folks with regulatory expertise, board administrators and staff, legal counsel for dental boards. And you can see there the dental boards that participated on the document team. We held a public comment period where the draft was publicly available for 8 weeks, and we received over 400 comments during that 8-week period from a wide variety of stakeholders. We reviewed all the comments and shared them with our document team and made changes to the compact as necessary. And then finally, the compact was finalized 1 year ago in January of 2023. Okay, so now we'll get into the specifics of the compact itself. Here's some commonly used terms that it would be useful for you to understand. So a participating state is just any state that has enacted the compact. A qualifying license is defined as an active and unencumbered license issued by a participating state. So if your state's in the compact and your license is currently active and unencumbered, you have a qualifying license. A remote state is any state that's in the compact where you do not hold a license and you are seeking to practice. A compact privilege is just legal authorization granted to you to practice in a single remote state. So that's the thing that the hygienist is applying to receive that authorizes them to work in another compact member state. We call it a compact privilege. And then lastly, the Compact Commission is the governing body that will implement and administer the compact on an ongoing basis. So this is not the CSG compact. This is not the ADHA compact or the ADA compact. This compact belongs to the member states. If you remember, this is a contract between states, and so states own this contract that they are entering into with one another. So we'll talk a little bit more about the commission on a later slide. Okay, so here's how it works kind of at a 10,000 foot level. So the dentist or hygienist who holds an active and unencumbered license is eligible to apply for what we call a compact privilege. They apply for that privilege, undergo a background check. If that background check is successful and all of their other eligibility criteria are verified, the practitioner will pay fees for the privilege and then complete any necessary jurisprudence requirements. And then that practitioner receives a compact privilege and now has legal authorization to work in a remote state where they do not hold a license. So you may be looking at this and thinking, well, this sounds very familiar to just the licensure application process. There's still a fee. I still have to apply. I have to do a background check. Like, what's the advantage here? And I think I would emphasize two things. The first thing is cost. So cost for the compact privilege is typically less than the fee for the full license. So for example, the compact privilege fee for the PT compact is $45. So that's going to be cheaper than most fees for a full dental hygiene license. And the second thing to emphasize here is speed or time of issuance. So once you go through this process one time and you're in the compact system, you should be able to get compact privileges in a matter of minutes. The PT Compact says on their website they can issue a privilege in 10 minutes or less. So you're talking about moving from a scenario where it takes weeks or sometimes months to get a dental hygiene license to being able to get authorization to practice in another state in a matter of 10 minutes or less. So the first privilege is going to take a little bit of time because you're going through a background check process and your eligibility has to be verified once, but it doesn't have to be verified over and over again every time you want to apply for a new privilege. The state does it one time and then you're in the system, and as long as you're not a bad actor or coming under any kind of board discipline, your license is in good standing. You should be able to use the compact in a streamlined manner and get access to all of the member states in a very streamlined and timely manner. Okay, so I mentioned there's eligibility criteria that the licensee has to meet. And so here's a list of some of the key requirements. So obviously the primary one that we're talking about is holding a unencumbered license. Number 2, you have to pass your national board exams. Number 3, CODA accredited education. So for the it's CODA accredited dental hygiene degree, and for the dentist, we specify that it's pre-doctoral dental education leading to DDS or DMD. So a CODA accredited residency requirement would not satisfy this, and so that is a question that we get a lot: is how do you deal with foreign trained dentists who maybe did a residency program and don't have a pre-doctoral degree? And how the compact is drafted is that those people would not be eligible to participate. You have to have a pre-doctoral dental education degree that's accredited by CODA. Number 4, successful completion of a clinical assessment. Now, the compact is agnostic as to which clinical assessment you completed because there are several out there. You've got the credits exam, CERTA, you've got the ADEX exam, and so there are several different types of clinical assessment out there. The compact just says you have to have completed one of those, but it doesn't specify which one you need to complete. So we didn't want to advantage one exam over another, and so that's why the definition is more broadly stated. And then lastly, successful completion of a criminal background check. We talked about that point on the last slide. Okay, so let's talk about benefits. Obviously, the primary benefit you're talking about here is facilitation of multi-state practice. You're able to work in other compact member states in a streamlined, timely manner. Enhances portability when you change your state of residence. So it helps when you're wanting to practice in multiple states simultaneously, and it also helps if you are moving to another compact member state. And I mentioned that DoD really prefers compacts, and obviously their military spouse population is highly mobile. But if you are a person who likes to relocate often, then the compact is going to have advantages for you as well. Expanding employment opportunities into new markets. Maybe you're able to work in new states that you didn't previously have access to because you didn't want to take another exam or go through the permitting process again or something like that. The compact would allow you to practice in those states. Improving continuity of care when patients or providers relocate. That's similar to the point made previously. We talked about military spouses, and then reducing the financial burden of maintaining multiple licenses. Like I mentioned, doing CEs for multiple licenses, paying the full renewal fees for multiple licenses. Those things are burdensome on the licensee, and so the compact helps eliminate some of that burden. All right, benefits to dental boards: reduction in administrative burden. So the dental board is no longer having to process as many out-of-state applications because more people are using the compact. And so there's a reduction of administrative burden on the board because they're not having to spend as much time processing applications. The compact helps ensure retention of practitioners when they're working in a different jurisdiction. So the dental board retains their control over anybody practicing in Illinois, whether under an Illinois license or a compact privilege. So if somebody violates the Illinois Practice Act, the dental board has the authority to take an action against their compact privilege, just as if that person held a license. And we're going to talk about some disciplinary scenarios on a later slide, and I think that'll make more sense. And then I mentioned the point about information sharing amongst the member states. This is largely facilitated through a shared data system. So all of these licensure compacts have a shared data system that the member states are feeding up information into, information about licensees that are using the compact, things like any current investigations, any disciplinary actions, things that would be important to know for public health and safety. And so for professions where this type of a data system isn't currently in place, that's a big benefit for boards. All right, and then states like these generally as a workforce development tool, we hear all the time about shortages, particularly in dental hygiene, and wanting to improve access to oral health services. And so the compact is a option that states can explore to help alleviate some of these shortage areas. So it's certainly not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all the problems, but it is a option that states can explore to help with these workforce issues. Okay, so I mentioned we'll talk a little bit about how discipline works under the compact. So I've got two scenarios here that deal with adverse action. So in scenario one, the practitioner violates the Practice Act in their state of licensure. So the state of licensure is the one who takes the lead on the investigation. They notify all of the other compact member states that there is an investigation ongoing for this licensee. And let's say the state decides to take an adverse action on the license. So because they're actually acting on the qualifying license, that license is no longer active and unencumbered, so they no longer have access to the compact. Their ability to obtain new compact privileges or utilize their current compact privileges are automatically suspended until the qualifying license is then restored to good standing. So the principle is you keep your license in good standing, you're not going to have any issues, but if a board takes an action against your license, your ability to use the compact is suspended until your license is restored to good standing. Okay, let's say the violation takes place in a remote state. So the remote state would take the lead on conducting that investigation. Again, the presence of significant investigative information would then be shared to all of the member states via the data system. Let's say that remote state decides to take an action on the compact privilege. Once the adverse action occurs, all of the compact privileges in other remote states are automatically suspended again. So if a final action is taken by a remote state, the state of licensure, the state that has actually issued the license for that individual, can take the action taken by a remote state and essentially treat it as if that activity occurred in their state, and potentially take an action on their license as well if the action is serious enough. So the principle is if your license, your qualifying license is in good standing, you're going to continue to be able to use the compact. But if your privileges are acted upon by a board or your qualifying license, then your ability to use the compact is suspended until those things are then restored to good standing. Okay, I mentioned I would talk a little bit more about the Compact Commission. So the commission is a joint government agency made up of all of the member states. So this is the body that is going to implement and administer the compact on an ongoing basis. And the reason why we have this commission structure is we want to give the governing entity for this compact the ability to write rules rather than having to go back to the legislature legislature every time there's a change that's necessary. So let's say 20 years from now, there's a new accrediting body out there besides CODA, and the member states say, hey, we want to recognize this accrediting agency as valid, and we want to be able to use that for the compact's purposes. We don't have to go back to the legislature and say, hey, we need to reenact this compact all over again to account for this change, because we have this commission in place that can write rules that help implement and administer the compact. So you can see that's where the commission structure gives the compact some flexibility and the ability to be evergreen and grow and evolve with the profession. Couple other things to emphasize here. The rules absolutely cannot step outside of the bounds of the compact. So because the commission is only tasked with implementing the compact, and the compact is only a alternative route to practice, it has nothing to do with scope of practice in a state or licensure requirements. The commission could never write a rule that impacts all Illinois licensees, and they could never write a rule that impacts somebody that's not seeking to use the compact. They could never write a rule to dictate a particular scope of practice to states. And that's totally outside of the bounds of what the commission is authorized to do and would be rejected. So just to emphasize, the commission is just there to implement the compact, to interpret and administer what's in the authorizing statute, and the rules of the commission cannot extend outside of that. Okay, some additional points of emphasis here for this particular compact. Like I said, this is not a takeover of state licensing in Illinois. Any kind of alternative routes that you have in place for licensure, your traditional licensure route for dental hygiene, all that's going to continue to exist. Nothing in the compact would ever say that somebody has to get a compact privilege. This is all voluntary, and is not something that Illinois is obligated to or licensees in Illinois are obligated to utilize. This privilege model is utilized by several other healthcare professions, including PT and psychology, speech language pathology, counseling, occupational therapy as well. So this is a tried and true model that works. And we've heard misconceptions around the model that CSG structured this compact like the cosmetology compact. That's absolutely not true. There's really no similarities at all between this compact and what we drafted for cosmetology. So if you hear that argument, that's just absolutely not true at all. We don't anticipate that there will be significant cost to the states to participate. Most of the time, the cost of the compact are passed on to the user, the licensee, and the state itself is not bearing any of the cost to administer this compact. So that's an important point to make. And these compacts are so widespread and so frequently adopted that if they were burdensome for states, if they were incurring a significant cost for states to participate, I really don't believe that compacts would be so popular. But we have seen that they've been low cost to the state to enact and administer these compacts, and so we don't anticipate significant cost for this one either. I will also mention that CODA accredited education is required. That's been another kind of misconception out there about this compact, is that non-CODA accredited dentist or hygienist will be able to use the compact, or I've heard things like foreign trained dentists will be able to get a dental hygiene license under the compact. That's absolutely not true. You have to have CODA accredited education. That's a requirement across the board. I mentioned the point around states retaining their sovereignty over the Practice Act and discipline of practitioners within their borders. So Illinois retains control over anybody practicing in Illinois, and they continue to dictate their own scope of practice, and they are not subject to any other state in terms of their scope of practice. Illinois continues to write its own laws and rules that govern dental hygiene. And then the compact will be active when 7 states enact it. I'll show you a map on a later slide that shows an update of where we are at with legislation. We have 3 member states and currently bills in 12 states right now. It sounds like soon to be 13 because we have our sponsors in Illinois lined up. Okay, so I did want to do a quick comparison between this compact and a alternative compact that is being pushed forward by the American Association of Dental Boards. So if you have heard anything about this compact, you've probably also heard about the AADB compact as well that's being pushed by the American Association of Dental Boards, and they are significantly different. So I did want to just very briefly highlight some of the differences. So the first difference that I'd want to highlight is sovereignty around clinical examination. So the AADB compact does exclusively require that you pass the ADEX exam, whereas the dentist and dental hygienist compact allows for multiple pathways to satisfy that clinical examination requirement. So it doesn't matter which clinical exam you took as long as you took a clinical assessment, whereas the AADB compact does specifically require the ADEX exam. So they're excluding alternatives for the benefit of the ADEX exam. The model is another significant difference. So the compact here that we're talking about employs the privilege model that we've been discussing. The AADB compact is modeled after the Interstate Medical Licensure Compact, which is essentially just expedited licensure. The compact is a administrative body that essentially gets you licensed in states faster than you would if you just tried to apply to the board on your own. But because of the administrative cost associated with getting somebody licensed in multiple states simultaneously, it's very expensive. $700 every time the physician wants to use the medical compact. And so we discussed during the drafting process, we discussed the model in detail and decided that medicine, the medical compact, was not appropriate for dentistry and dental hygiene, largely down to the cost that the medical compact has on its users. And I don't think there's any dental hygienist out there who would want to pay $700 to use a compact. That's just not feasible. And so it would be cost prohibitive for many practitioners. Another emphasis here is around criminal history or license discipline history. So the AADB compact does ban anyone who has ever had their license disciplined or has ever been convicted of any criminal offense. So other than just a simple CE violation. Whereas the compact that we're talking about today requires a background check, but leaves the decision to the states whether or not that person is fit to practice. So there's no blanket bans across the board to say that these types of practitioners are not eligible based on their history. And then the last thing here is the governance structure. So the AADB compact is housed within AADB exclusively. So it is an instrumentality of AADB itself, whereas the compact that we're discussing tonight, the commission structure is totally independent of any outside organization, not affiliated with CSG, not affiliated with the ADA. The commission is made up of the member states, and the member states will govern the compact for themselves. So it's not affiliated with any kind of outside group like the AADB compact is. Okay, so I mentioned we have a map with pending legislation and all of our current member states. You can see there Washington, Iowa, and Tennessee are our 3 states so far, and a lot of activity in the Midwest, particularly with several of Illinois' neighboring states. The compact is on the governor's desk in Wisconsin, so I do anticipate that they will be the 4th member state to join. We've passed out of the Senate in Indiana, and so I think there's a really positive movement there. And I think they're very likely to join, as well as Missouri as well. That's passed out of committee in both chambers. And so I do think we are very close to essentially all of Illinois' neighbors, except for Kentucky being compact member states by the end of this legislative session. Okay, so with that, I know there were a few questions that were submitted before the meeting, and so we're happy to address those, and then any other questions that we have from the audience tonight. So I would invite Grant to come and help me facilitate the Q&A. So Grant, do we want to start with the questions that were pre-submitted?
Yeah, we can go ahead and do that. Like Matt said, if you guys can think of any questions, go ahead and submit those in the chat, and we'll get to those after the pre-submitted questions we have. First question we've got, Matt. Once it passes through the legislature, its compact passes through, how long does it take to implement?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So like I mentioned, we have to hit 7 states first before any of this goes into effect. And then once we hit 7 states, there's a period of about 12 to 18 months where the compact is set up. So we call this standing up the compact commission. So that's, again, that governing body that implements and administers the compact. So all the states will nominate their delegates for who's going to sit on the commission. The commission will meet and write the initial rules and bylaws. That compact data system will get set up, and that whole process takes about 12 to 18 months. So realistically, let's say we hit 7 states in June of this year, you're probably looking at the end of 2025, early 2026 before somebody could actually use the compact and get a privilege.
That next question we've got, I think there's something we touched on slightly earlier, was one of the big concerns regarding the compact is that international dentists will be able to practice in some states, and how will this work with the compact?
Yeah, so I did touch on this in my remarks, but you have to have CODA accredited degree to be able to use the compact. So for dental hygiene, they'd have to go back to school and get a CODA accredited dental hygiene degree. And same with dentistry as well. You have to go back to school and get a predoctoral dental degree. And so there's really no pathway for an international foreign trained dentist to be able to use the compact.
That third question, what about dentists and hygienists that may have had their license disciplined? Will there be a way for states to have this information?
Yes, so because of the data system that is in place, any member state will be able to see in real time when a licensee is disciplined, and their ability to use the compact would be suspended if they were currently under a disciplinary order. So their license has to be clean and unencumbered to be able to use the compact at all in the first place. And then once they've been issued privilege, if their privilege is acted upon by a remote state, their ability to use the compact again is suspended until that disciplinary order is over and they are restored to good standing and fully able to practice to the extent of their scope.
That, and then our last pre-submitted question, we just had the map up earlier, but is there going to be any reciprocity with Indiana or Michigan?
Yeah, so Indiana, I think, very likely to pass this legislative session. Michigan, we've met with the Hygiene Association and the Dental Association several times, and there is a lot of interest there. I think they're still just kind of studying the issue, and they haven't committed to introducing the bill this year, but I do think there's a lot of interest there.
That's all the pre-submitted questions. Looks like we got one question in the chat, but we'll go first to Jacob, who's got his hand raised.
Hi, a couple quick questions. I'm with Republican staff in the House, so wanted to hop on and see what was going on here. The privilege system versus the system used in the other compact you were comparing this to, is the privilege system more like the nurse licensure compact also?
Yes, so the privilege system is kind of built on this concept of mutual recognition. So you have one license, you're able to practice in other member states. Nursing does work a little bit differently because in nursing, you're issued what is called a multi-state license, which is pretty closely analogous to your driver's license. You're able to practice anywhere. no notification, no extra step necessary. So it's pretty seamless. Where the privilege model, you are basically obtaining individual authorizations to work in each remote state where you want to practice. So the remote states get a little bit of extra fee for that. And then also visibility, knowing about who's practicing in your state, I think is an important issue for dental boards. So if we were to do the nursing model, I think a lot of people would feel uncomfortable with that, because with nursing, you really don't know who's in your state at any one time.
Gotcha.
Anybody using the compact could be in your state practicing at any time with the nursing model.
And then just one other thing, specialty licenses. I believe we license separately in Illinois for a number of the dental specialties. How transferable are those under the privileges?
Yeah, so the privilege gets you into the state as a general dentist or general dental hygienist. If there's anything extra that you want to do a specialty, maybe you're a hygienist and you want to administer local anesthesia, you've got to do that state specific permitting in order to do those specialty or that expanded scope of practice function.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that. We'll go to a few questions in the chat now. On the jurisprudence requirement, is this an online exam or is it test in person?
So that would be it's a state by state. Every state has their own jurisprudence exam if they have one at all, and it's essentially just a simple test of your understanding of the Practice Act. So it's like a laws and rules exam. I think in almost every instance, the state offers it online, but I don't know that for a fact. But yeah, these things are pretty straightforward, and typically you're able to pass it in a few minutes.
For that, next question. So if a state is allowing an international dentist to practice as a dental hygienist and giving them a license to do so, would that person be able to go to another state and practice as a hygienist?
Not under the compact, no, because they would not satisfy the requirement as having CODA accredited education. So they would not be eligible for a compact privilege, even if they hold a license in another state.
Okay. And then final question we've got right now in the chat. What can dentists and dental hygienists do here in Illinois in order to support joining the compact?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think we'll have an update from Jan here in a few minutes, but getting involved in the advocacy process. So showing up, when we've got a committee hearing and testifying, providing written testimony, when there is opportunity for public input, just showing your support and emphasizing why the compact would be beneficial for you. I think legislators typically like hearing personal stories about how a particular policy would benefit them or impact them. And so as much as we can communicate how the compact would provide value to you in your career, I think those are all stories that really resonate with legislators, because we can get into arguments over policy all day, but when it comes down to it, these are elected officials who have constituents, and when their constituents are telling them, hey, this is a really good idea, this would benefit me a lot, I think that's when they're going to listen the most.
Matt, we got a couple more questions that have come up in the chat. One is, how is it determined that someone did not attend a CODA accredited program if they are applying for reciprocity and have a license in one state?
So that would be the state that has licensed that individual would essentially verify that they've met all of the compact's requirements. So whoever has issued that person a license, when they're applying for a compact privilege, they would say yes or no whether or not that person had met all of the requirements, including education.
That. Then the last question we got from right now in the chat, how can dental or dental hygiene students get involved, or can they provide testimony as well?
Yeah, so typically the hearings for bills are open to anyone to testify, and I think students are a great population of stakeholders who would benefit from the compact and being mobile. You know, I think our society just in general is moving to being more mobile, and most people coming out of school don't expect to live in the same place where they graduated or where they grew up. And so yeah, I think students could be a powerful voice in advocacy in the legislature. And um, uh, Jan, if you have any thoughts about best ways for dentists and hygienists and students to advocate, maybe you could touch on that in your remarks as well.
You've been very thorough, Matt. But throughout the process, I mean, during the committee hearing, they can submit support slips. They can submit written testimony. When the time comes, when we decide who's going to actually do the oral testimony. So there are ways, and they can get a hold of their state rep and their senator where they live, and just introduce themselves and say who they are and why this is important for their future.
Thank you for that, Jan. And Matt, one more question that popped up in the chat. Is this compact for a traveling hygienist type of work, short term, or is it if you are planning to move somewhere to work long term?
I think either would be a appropriate use of the compact. So there's no real term limit for how long you could use the privilege. You could practice on a compact privilege your whole career if you wanted to. So as long as your license is in good standing and you're meeting all the renewal requirements for your license, your privileges will renew automatically. So yeah, the traveling hygienist scenario, I mean, the whole concept of the nursing compact was built for the traveling nurse. And so I think this compact could operate in a similar manner, and then also helping those who are looking to relocate and settle down permanently, and maybe you know, don't want to have to go back and retest or go back and do more schooling or something like that.
I want to add to that. I think it is also helpful in the communities that are by the border states. So in other words, if you live close to Indiana or close to Wisconsin, this gives you more flexibility and gives them more flexibility on where they can work.
Thank you for that. Next question. We already do licensure by endorsement. Is the main benefit of the compact over endorsement the speed? If Illinois has a higher standard for licensure, is getting a privilege under the compact a way around stricter endorsement standards?
Sure. So I think most states have licensure by endorsement, and you know what that's doing is creating a pathway for somebody to come and practice in Illinois, but Illinois' licensure by endorsement doesn't do anything for helping Illinois licensees go and work in other states. So compact is bi-directional, it's reciprocity in both ways. And you know, to the point around stricter requirements, I think dental hygiene licensure requirements are pretty uniform across the country. Every state requires CODA accredited education. Every state requires you pass your national boards, and every state requires some sort of clinical assessment, one of the hands-based regional exams. And so from that standpoint, there is a uniformity across the states. And so Illinois shouldn't be any different from any other state in terms of their standards.
More question. Has IDHA submitted a bill to enact the compact? If so, what is the bill number and who is the sponsor?
That'd be a question for Jan.
So we have submitted the bill into the Legislative Reference Bureau. And now we're waiting to, get it released. So there is no bill number right now. It hasn't been filed.
All right. I think that should be all of our questions on here, Matt.
Okay, well, we'll give it another minute or so. And Lori, do you want to say anything just to wrap us up? Lori, you're still on mute.
I got it. I have a tendency to do that. I'd like to thank everybody again for attending. We were recording this session, so it will be available, I'm hoping, on the Illinois Dental Hygienists Association webpage, so that if anybody has any questions about it, or if you know of somebody that did want to attend tonight and they were working or not able to attend, then they would be able to come onto the website and watch the recording for tonight. Also, keep an eye on the Illinois Dental Hygienists Association webpage. We will be updating you regarding what is going on with Illinois legislature when we get a bill number, and where we're at in the process, so everybody can know what's going on in the state. I've been trying to, on Facebook and on our page, keep everybody informed about what's going on. I did put up there that Wisconsin, it passed their House and Senate, and that it is sitting on the governor's desk now. So I will be trying to keep you updated on all that information as the time goes on this year during session.
Think of that,
Great.
Lori.
And I think somebody said in the chat if they could get the website address for IDHA.
You can Google Illinois Dental Hygienists Association. It is idha.net. Thank you, Lydia. Oh, Rhonda even put it up. So you can copy it out of the chat box also. And Jacob wants to know if he can get the slides.
Yes, happy to provide those.
Okay. So you can contact Matt Schaefer at his email address down below, Jacob. Anybody else, if you wanted more additional information, you can go to the website and see all the information about the DDH compact and keep updated on other states on that site. And then Matt Schaefer's email if you have any other questions, if you want to get copies of the slides. Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight, and wish us luck.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Matt. Thanks, Grant.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jan.